World Championship Wrestling these days takes a lot of shots, and that makes sense. You can go and watch the product in the year 2000, and you won't believe it. Anytime you think they can't get any more nuts, they will. There is no pathway they won't go down. The reason that it hit hard, though, is because there was a time when WCW was awesome. You don't beat WWE for 83 weeks straight with a bad product, and in fact, Vince McMahon even borrowed a lot of their ideas. So, when was it better than everything on this planet? I'm Simon Miller, and here's some news. Number 15, tag teams at SuperBrawl. In 1991, the tag division in North America was actually pretty good. Even though Vince McMahon didn't like booking 4 people in a match, he still had the Nasty Boys, the Hart Foundation, and the Legion of Doom who were having decent matches. It was nothing, however, compared to WCW, who took tags and made the whole division awesome. It was SuperBrawl 1991 where the Steiners took on Sting and Lex Luger and put on a bout people still talk about today. Go and show it to a 2025 audience and they'll still pop the same as people did 30 years ago, and the sheer power of it all. Scott and Rick were all about that, but look across the ring, it's Sting and Luger. I mean, come on. The future Big Papa Pump is also hitting his suplexes and powerbombs like nobody has ever done them before, and it was just the sheer star power here. The WWF teams were decent, but when they put their top guys together, well, you got Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior versus Sergeant Slaughter, General Adnan, and Colonel Mustafa. That was the 1991 SummerSlam. It wasn't very good. In terms of Western promotions, though, nobody was doing what WCW was with their tags. They took them seriously and made them feel like they really mattered. Again, you could have taken Sting and Lex Luger especially and put them in singles competition, but we had some stories to tell, damn it. So we rang up the Steiners and we got a little piece of magic. Number 14, Ric Flair is the Saviour. Never forget that from 1991 to 1993, Ric Flair was in the World Wrestling Federation. It was huge because he was Mr. NWA, and therefore he was Mr. WCW. When he jumped across and became the WWF champion at the Royal Rumble, this was career-defining stuff. Although the truth was the Nature Boy was always more suited to World Championship Wrestling, just due to how Vince McMahon booked his show. Either way, the man was a star. Now, I don't know whether Flair planned this out too, but it actually turned out to be a massive home run. When he did return to WCW at Starrcade 1993 to face Vader, it felt massive. It also came off some real-life madness too, because Sid Vicious had been released after almost killing Arn Anderson in a hotel room. So what a replacement to get was the returning hero. The fact Rick had mostly been a heel made this more fun too, because of course he walked back in as the man, who desperately was going to have to try and survive the Mastodon. This was also when Mean Gene Okerlund visited the Flair household in the build-up to make it feel like this could be the end of Rick altogether. It was good stuff. It was simple but effective storytelling too, and of course the cherry on top was Flair overcoming the odds in Charlotte, North Carolina. It also saw fans tune back in because of course they did. So if anybody started the WCW comeback the first time round, it was this guy. It's also why some of the choices during the Nitro years were crazy. We've talked about that. I don't think Eric Bischoff got it. Number 13, that Eddie Guerrero-Rey Mysterio match. As ever, we do need to remember that WCW's choice to make the cruiserweights part of their mid-card scene was genius. It meant we all got this fast-paced, rarely seen before action before the main event, and for many, this is why they watched. Was paving the way for the future. What stood out maybe even more than any of those, though, is what Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero did at Halloween Havoc 1997. I watched this the other day, and yeah, it is as good now as it ever was. It's probably one of the best WCW matches of all time. Even if people bought the pay-per-view for Roddy Piper versus Hollywood Hogan in a cage or Randy Savage versus DDP, surely it was this bout which made you happy you'd put the cash down. It was just so damn good. It was also title versus mouse, so you had some real stakes, and the snowball effect surely rolled right into their rivals in WWE. They both became huge stars because the proof was right here. They had what it takes. They were next level performers. It was a genuine hybrid of North American wrestling and lucha libre, and you didn't see anything like this in the WWF. It didn't exist. You knew it was good too, because what did Vince McMahon try and do the following year? Well, he introduced the light heavyweight division. Not even close. So you need to see this no matter what your fandom may be. That is how good it is, and you can see them influencing the wrestlers of tomorrow. Not many people can say that. Two bona fide legends. Number 12, DDP arrives in the main event. The DDP story is awesome. He was a manager for most of his career, and then in his 30s transitioned across to being an in-ring competitor. A lot of people rolled their eyes at this, and then come 1997, he was atop of the card. Diamond Dallas Page was brilliant. We talked about his match with the Macho Man at Halloween Havoc 1997, which did rule, but the one 6 months prior is likely even better. This was Spring Stampede, and yeah, if we are documenting DDP's career, it was here when he took that step up to the tippity top. Page has always said this was Randy Savage seeing his talent and wanting to put him over, but it always takes two to tango. He worked his socks off to get here, and in the late 90s, he was a genuine draw. That's why he called himself the People's Champion. Fans believed. The no DQ match at Spring Stampede really showed everybody he was here to stay. And of course, there's a part 2 to all of this. One of the reasons Savage left the WWF or WCW is because Vince McMahon said he was done, and it was time to become a commentator. Not quite. So it was just another reason to watch WCW, because not only were the legends flying, but the new guys were feuding with them. And while it sounds crazy to say now, it did feel pretty damn fresh. Number 11, Sting beats Ric Flair with a bad knee. So as ever, this was greeted by a classic call from Jim Ross, who just shouted, "Sting's got him inside Crable. Could this be all?" Yes. He honestly said yes for around about 5 minutes, and he finished it off with, "A new heavyweight champion of the world has been crowned." It really did sum up the atmosphere leading into the WCW Great American Bash in 1990, because you could feel it in the air. Everybody wanted to see Sting as the champion, especially at the expense of Ric Flair. The Stinger was also able to apply the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment, the surprise roll-up coming out of the figure 4, so that was like a double whammy, and the story going into this just ruled. The Nature Boy kept going after the knee of the icon, and because he was a babyface, he just sold and sold and sold. The audience was genuinely worried that meant Sting wasn't going to win. But by the time the ref's hand came slapping down to the mat for the 1, 2, 3, everybody just thought to themselves, damn it, isn't wrestling wonderful? Because tribalism is always the way, many people like to compare this to Hulk Hogan versus the Ultimate Warrior at WrestleMania 6, and I do get that. But if we are going to look at it through a 2025 lens, well, quite clearly the match between Ring and Stick Flair is way better in the ring. It is just a pity that WCW followed this up with the crummy Starrcade 1990 cage match, because yes, that's when we had the Black Scorpion. Believe you me, you can find many videos about that too. The bash was absolutely timeless though, and a reminder of just how popular Sting was. So many people like to pretend he shouldn't have been at the top of WCW's main event scene. This is absolute evidence to the contrary. He just had so much damn credibility as a champion too, and Ric Flair believed this, hence why he did put him over so strong. And look where we are today. Sting retired in AEW, and everybody thought he was the man. He'd been doing it for so damn long. You should watch this if you haven't seen it, especially if you don't get Steve Borden. This will change your mind. Number 10, Shane McMahon drops Vince's jaw. So here is something a little bit different. Obviously on the 26th of March 2001 Nitro, the WWF had already bought WCW, and we got the now infamous simulcast. If you're watching Raw, you're watching Nitro, and if you're watching Nitro, you're watching Raw, and Vince McMahon opened both shows. If you were of the right age, this felt like a dream and nightmare rolled into one. There was always going to be some big storyline twist, especially because this was the Attitude Era, so yes, just as Vince McMahon was about to sign the contract, Shane McMahon popped up on Nitro and said, "Don't worry about it, Dad, because our name is already on the deal," but it doesn't read Vince, it says Shane. Off to the races we went, we had a civil war. Now, of course, so many people will roll their eyes these days because it was yet more in the McMahon family feud, but the truth is it worked, and so many people tuned into this, they had no idea what the flub was going on. It also actually made the WCW brand feel important, because many fans thought, oh my gosh, World Championship Wrestling is just going to be buried. Well, this was telling you at the very least we were going to do promotional interwarfare, with the odd twist that the WWF actually owned both companies. What are you going to do? Do not forget as well that during this time, WCW had lost all of its aura, so when all of a sudden we shone a spotlight on it again, well, it did seem to be in a much better place. Obviously, what would happen over the next few months would totally kill that off, but on this night, or dare I say it, WWE did everything right before they went and did everything wrong. Shane McMahon's promo here is pretty damn good too. I think he was excited. He was going to milk it for all it's worth. Number 9, the NWO Wolfpac. So we all know that when the NWO was born in 1996, everybody thought they were the coolest damn heels to ever walk the face of the wrestling world. It's true. The issue was WCW didn't really know what to do if they got rid of the New World Order, so they just kept it going. Then on the 4th of May 1998 Nitro, Kevin Nash, Randy Savage and Conan formed a complete offshoot of the group, And yes, now we had the Wolfpac, and they dressed in red and black. They tried to get back the badassery that the original NWO had, especially with that now iconic entrance theme. And to be fair to WCW, this completely worked. I mean, it was 2 years since the New World Order had formed, and somehow, even with all the other shenanigans, they'd managed to find a decent round 2. Kevin Nash himself especially was trying to lean into this, which is why he put Conan in the thing. He had talked about the fact that K-Dog had a certain street cred that none of the other members did. He was right. Of course, the goal here was to try and bring in the younger and more casual crowd, so their first step was correct, and then eventually we had Kurt Hennig and a bunch of other people, and it essentially became NWO 2.0. Eric Bischoff knew the NWO was a license to print money on merch sales though, and it actually worked again here, because as successful as the first black and white t-shirt was, well, this new one with some red was equally as huge. And yes, of course, the same old issues reared their head just a few months later, but when they first burst onto the scene in May 1998, well, it felt like you were a part of something pretty damn badass. I mean, it doesn't really feel that way now, especially because there's a lot of bowdy bowdy, wee rowdy rowdy, like a kid's poem, but different times, man. Different times. Number 8, Hulk Hogan arrives in WCW. So the summer was 1994, and all of a sudden the game changed for one company. That company was WCW, thanks to Eric Bischoff signing wrestling's golden goose, also known as Hulk Hogan. These days it just feels par for the course because you're just used to this story, but you really have to go back to the mid-90s to understand this. Hulk had left the WWF because his popularity was waning, and he wanted to become a television and film star. He shot Thunder in Paradise, and when he was on set, Bischoff went to see him and said, "Hey man, we're going to give you all the money to sign for World Championship Wrestling." And when he said yes, we'll put it like this: if Reddit had been around, it would have totally melted down. It'd be like John Cena joining AEW. WCW made sure to put all the pomp and circumstance into this too, including driving Hulk Hogan in a car through Disney's MGM Studios. It was like he was the flipping president. Vince McMahon was livid over this as well, especially due to their relationship, although actually his plan was sound. He was trying to push the new generation and stars such as Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon, but sometimes old faces do work, and there was a huge portion of the fan base that just wanted to see what Hogan was going to do on the other side. McMahon was also struggling to find his next top star, which is why he told Lex Luger just to be a Hulk Hogan clone, which was a total failure. And go and watch Bash at the Beach 1994. That is Hulk's first pay-per-view where he does take on Ric Flair, and guess what happened? That's right, they pulled their biggest buy rate to date. So any money they had invested, well, it was already on the way back. So Hulk Hogan definitely brought eyeballs and open wallets to WCW, and without it, you do not get the boom just a couple of years later. It's one of the reasons people do cite him as a game changer, because not only did he do it once in the 80s, he went and did it again about 10 years later. Number 7, WCW Nitro opens with a WWF jump. The first ever WCW Nitro went down on the 4th of September 1995, and of course this was a big deal. Not only could you watch WWF Raw, but now there was direct competition. Eric Bischoff knew he needed something huge to get fans talking right off the back, so he went and brokered a deal with Lex Luger, who quite literally was working for the World Wrestling Federation, or at least he had been on their TV. The issue being, somebody didn't realize his contract had lapsed, so Lex was allowed to go wherever the flub he wanted. There is so much to this story too that we learn after the fact, because Luger actually signed for less money, thinking that his ceiling would be way bigger if he went back to WCW. That appeased Eric Bischoff to prove he was a team player, and at the end of the episode, Lex Luger did walk to the ring. The commentator shouted, "What is he doing here?" like he was breaking contract, and he got right in the face of Hulk Hogan. Away we went. This is also one of the reasons it took till 2025 until Lex was honored in the WWE Hall of Fame, because McMahon never forgave him. Again, go back and watch that WCW WWF simulcast. You want to know why Vince is taking shots at Lex? Because of this. Kicking off the Nitro era was such a seismic move, though, set the tone for what people could expect, and nearly every single week WCW did have something more, and they just felt like a massive heavyweight league. And yes, it launched years of back and forth between Bischoff and McMahon, and eventually that did get out of hand, as they constantly took shots at each other, but when they did stuff like this, it was just the best type of fan service. Number 6, Luger wins the big one. So by the time the 4th of August 1997 rolled around, not only were we having WCW versus WWE, but the WCW versus NWO war was very much in full effect too. Folks were thumping down millions of dollars for tickets, pay-per-views and merchandise. And while we were going to have to wait a little longer to see what Sting was going to do with Hulk Hogan, we threw Lex Luger right into the mix. Let's give the fans something. because on this very Nitro, Lex did indeed beat Hogan for his WCW World title. WCW was really clever with this as well because they did have their Road Wild show the following week, so everybody assumed this was going to be a screwy finish, and we just built to that instead. I mean, this was the NWO after all. You could just send out goon after goon, but in a proper swerve, Luger actually won the World Championship on free TV before the damn pay-per-view. Nobody was doing that. What's more, he did it clean as well after he hoisted Hulk up in the air for his torture rack finish. And man, fans and attendants lost their collective minds. It wasn't just the fact that they felt like they'd seen a moment, but really in terms of the story, it was the first time a dagger had been plunged into the heart of the New World Order. You didn't really see that very much. It of course just meant that we did do the opposite because Hogan won his title back at Road Wild. But seeing Lex Luger in the ring the week beforehand as babyface after babyface came to the ring to celebrate for him, well, it's actually what WCW needed. In mid-1997, the NWO were a little bit too dominant for their boots. We had to balance it out. Luger was the perfect guy. It was a great era to be a wrestling fan. Number 5, Sting vanquishes the NWO. So let's say today that Cody Rhodes walked to the ring, told us he was struggling with his emotions and his feelings, and he didn't really like what was going on in WWE right now. He then totally changed his look, vanished from television, and every time you looked up into the rafters, there he was just staring at you, not uttering a word. That's basically what we did to Sting back in 1996. Because as I'm sure you know, he went from Surfer Sting to The Crow. If you had told somebody that didn't watch this was a different person, they'd likely have believed you. The drastic change was inspired by Scott Hall mentioning Brandon Lee from the Crow movies, and it was literally perfect for the ongoing WCW vs NWO story. I mean, Sting was mad because some of his on-screen buddies had accused him of joining the heel faction, so he felt totally isolated. He was going to retreat and try and re-find himself, or turn into an absolute loon. It also meant that he stalked Hollywood Hogan from the shadows and basically did nothing. And I tell you, my friends, few characters were more compelling than Sting between 1996 and 1997. I mean, this is where the whole dream match with The Undertaker came from, because he was basically the spooky guy on the other side. And yes, the eventual Starrcade 1997 bout was absolutely dreadful as Hulk Hogan went out there to ruin it, but I am talking about the sheer hype and build. Arguably, WCW never did anything better. It was also a masterclass on how to reinvent yourself and come across like a totally different persona. And once again, Sting wasn't saying anything here. It was his expressions that drew the viewers in. He basically got away with this every single week. If you want to break it right down and be super nerdy, he was essentially wrestling's Batman. And given this did go down in the late 90s, I kind of think that somebody should do it again. I mean, I suppose that person could have been Darby Allin, but he's more of an absolute Fruit Loop, but still. This gimmick was awesome, and WCW got everything right. Number 4, Scott Hall interrupts Nitro. So this has to be considered one of the most iconic moments in wrestling history, and you can see it right now by watching the 27th of May 1996 Nitro. Scott Hall doesn't walk down the aisleway, he doesn't have any music, he just hops the guardrail, he gets in the ring during a match when he grabs a microphone and simply says, "You people know who I am, but you don't know why I'm here." Now, in a world before the internet blew up, most people assumed this was part of the story. It still made you think twice like Celine Dion and question whether something was going on here. Hall went into this as well when he uttered the iconic line, "You people know who I am, but you don't know why I'm here." And the whole idea was to make you think that he had just left the WWF and walked into WCW because he wanted an invasion. The outsider had arrived. This just wasn't something that anybody did, especially when it came to debuts, and it's only fair to say that WCW was pushing boundaries and creating something that was totally new. I mean, without saying it, everybody started to ponder whether Razor Ramon had been sent to destroy the competition. I mean, deep down you didn't know that, but again, it made you believe. You know that it irked the other side as well because Vince McMahon and the WWF sued WCW, and the whole idea of creative kind of got thrown out the window. It was super smart to debut Hall like this, however, because it just got you excited and you wanted to find out what the hell was going to go on next week. We also made sure to use his real name that just added to all of this. And of course, a few weeks later, he got a friend. Number 3, Kevin Nash powerbombs Eric Bischoff through a table. So yes, Scott Hall did mention that he wasn't coming alone, which was when former WWF champion and fellow Kliq member Kevin Nash turned up on the show. And let's not forget he was one of Vince McMahon's banner stars as Diesel in 1993. Now he's back in WCW with a renewed purpose. This was the 10th of June 1996 Nitro, but it's 6 days later we want to talk about when Kevin Nash powerbombed Eric Bischoff off the stage at the Great American Bash pay-per-view. Now, Bischoff sold that like the rent was due, and it's very important to note that in the mid-90s, nobody was taking out authority figures, so all of a sudden the outsiders seemed like they were super duper dangerous. They'd come to wreck the place, rake in Ted Turner's millions, and get guaranteed contracts. It also turned them into tippity top stars, which is what they wanted in the World Wrestling Federation. And remember how Vince McMahon reacted to this? He created Fake Razor and Fake Diesel, two of the worst gimmicks of all time. If you are going to do a pub quiz and you would like some trivia, Fake Diesel was played by none other than Glenn Jacobs, who would soon go on to become Kane. There was also Isaac Yankem during this period, who was an evil dentist. Let's just talk about something else. Number 2, Hulk Hogan is the third man. Now you would have expected this one, but it's important to push the context. Nobody in 1996 thought Hulk Hogan was going to turn heel. Even though Kevin Nash and Scott Hall kept talking about the third man, and it made sense to be the owner of Hulkamania given his WWF ties, nobody would do this with Hulk because he sold tickets and he sold merchandise, and if nothing else, the real-life Terry Bollea would have said no. Oh, how wrong we were. Because come Bash at the Beach that year, Hulk did drop a leg on his former foe and friend Randy Savage, and he linked up with Hall and Nash to become wrestling's most talked about new faction. And he does accidentally call it the New World Organization during his promo, but he soon gets New World Order out there too, as Mean Gene Okerlund looks actually offended. It's important to throw that in there. And how mad Tony Schiavone was on commentary. He said Hulk Hogan could go to hell. All of this was just so well damn executed. Don't forget the ring is also littered with garbage because the fans are so mad. In 1996, WCW got a proper emotional reaction. Bobby Heenan is great here too because he tied into his decade-long vendetta that Hulk Hogan wasn't a good guy. And sure, leading up to this, the question was, could it be Sting? Could it be Randy Savage? Could it be Lex Luger? And could it be Mabel? And I would implore you to go and read that edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter. It has wildly been taken out of context. With one angle though, WCW did become the hottest topic in town and wrestling fans were desperate to see what was going to happen next. It really is one of the best storylines of all time, and it tied into everything the WWF had done. I think that's why it irked Vince McMahon so much. Maybe he should have done that instead. For one, Goldberg wins the world title, undefeated. Go and watch the Goldberg vs. Hogan match from the 6th of July 1998 episode of Nitro. Doesn't really matter if you enjoy Goldberg or not, this is absolutely phenomenal. I'll actually remind you why Bill was such a big deal. Nobody else could have pulled this off. He also went into this match undefeated since debuting on TV in September 1997, and when he pinned Hulk Hogan, my gosh, the Georgia Dome exploded because we just crowned a brand new world champion who hadn't lost one frickin' match. The Spear Jackhammer finish felt extra special on this evening too. This is another one. It's just so well damn executed. Everybody plays their part perfectly. Watching Nitro around this time was a real treat for regulars too, because it's almost like they wanted something and then they got it. And the only real criticism of this is why wasn't it on pay-per-view? But you don't need to care about that unless you had shares or money invested in WCW. If you would like to send somebody cash, I'll give you my PayPal details. It's not like the WWE was failing here either because Steve Austin was getting hot, but the whole point was Goldberg vs. Hogan for a championship was just that big, it was always going to pop a TV rating. Given the WCW is now deceased, you can just watch this for enjoyment too, and it really is an incredible moment. Bravo for WCW for doing it. I mean, Goldberg would then lose all this when Scott Hall attacked him with a cattle prod, but we've talked about that enough. So let's focus on the good times. Know of any other occasions where WCW was just great? Make sure you let us know in the comments below before you like the video, share the video, and subscribe. If you would like to look on the other side of WCW, namely the bad part, well, you can click the video on the screen right now. Otherwise, my friends, make sure you take care of yourself, and I appreciate you stopping in. I'll talk to you again on the next one.